Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pricing Government Products, Part 2. So thank you for everyone that was here last week for services, and thank you for your patience because it was my first webinar. But now this is my second one, so I'm a little better. And I have my moral support person here, Ashley, who will be here to answer any questions and help however she can if I'm overwhelmed or ready to cry. So with that being said, let's get into it. All right, government contracts and essentially products in the pricing world. I want to take a step back because we always kind of go straight into the pricing portion of it. And I know that probably like 60 to 70% of the Facebook group is not necessarily 100% aware of government contracting 101. So I'm not going to go in deep dive into it, though that can be a separate session. And if that is something that you're interested in, please add it to the comments and I'm happy to, oblige. And we can make that a future course. But for right now, I kind of want to just dive deep into a little bit about the federal marketplace to ensure that we are on the same page, right? So with that being said, an overview of how the U.S. government buys products. We do most of our purchases through what we call the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. They are the agency that essentially puts out the regulations for us to abide by. This is how we remain what you always hear us say, compliance, right? That's who we are remaining compliant to. There is a regulation to maintain what is fair, what is realistic, what is marketable, and what the government buys and what we're allowed to sell and for how much. So stay tuned on that. Some contracting vehicles. When we talk about contracting vehicles, we're talking about, and you can see it in some of our past podcasts, but some of our contracting vehicles, IDIQs, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts, GSA schedules. You probably hear that a lot. There's probably like 1 million people shoving a GSA schedule down your throat. That is a contracting vehicle. Multiple award schedules, right? GWACs, government-wide acquisition contracts. These are all vehicles to make quick sales that are pre-negotiated for the future and locked in. Solicitations, we talk about this quite often. They're posted on sam.gov, formerly known as FedBizOps, depending how long you've been in the industry. And they are the government's centralized platform for contracting opportunities in the federal space. Now, let's go over some purchasing methods because this does matter. Micro purchases, typically up to $10,000. I'm not sure if that was updated yet because they were looking to increase it to 15, but right now, as it stands, it was $10,000. This can be made with a procurement purchase card. So most folks that work in the government and that can purchase are authorized to do a micro purchase. Now, $10,000 is usually the limit that they can be authorized to spend on that purchase card. So anything for $10,000 or under can usually be a quick purchase with little to no procedures or requirements. Simplified acquisitions. That's a little different. That's anywhere over $10,000 to $250,000. Those ranges have lighter procedures. So they don't have as many FAR requirements and as much evaluations. In most cases, you don't really have to write a whole proposal for them. They're usually, I want to say, RFQs. These are simplified acquisitions. When you are just getting started in government contracting, I always suggest people kind of stay within that lane. Simplified acquisitions. It's a little easier. Formal contracting. So anything above $250,000. More complex, more evaluations, more regulations, more compliance. Those are the thresholds. All right, so emerging federal contracting opportunities. We're just going based on 2022 data, right? $630 billion in the first fiscal year. I think that increased a whole lot for 2024, and it's increasing in 2025. But nonetheless, the DoD is about 60% of that federal spend. So Department of Defense. Overall, there's plenty of money to be had in federal contracting, right? But let's kind of like talk about what those emerging federal opportunities are, right? Where is the government spending most of their money, and where is that coming from? Is it increasing? How is it increasing? What industry is it increasing in? So on and so forth. Knowledge is power, and as Ashley would say, follow the data. Market research, right? So here we go. IT modernization, cybersecurity, healthcare equipment. That's, medical supplies, hardware for medical hospitals, for the VA, things like that. Sustainable technologies, anything in innovation right now. All of these things are emerging, and they are the ones that the government, these are the products, mostly products, a little bit of services, but mostly products. If we talk about services, it's probably more systems integration and training services to utilize the products. But mostly in the product space, IT, like Dell laptops, hardware, cybersecurity initiatives, healthcare, and sustainable technologies are where the money is at when it comes to products right now. You will also notice this narrative of technology. So aerial-based technology like drones, a lot of money being spent in new aircrafts, modernization and innovation and R&D is also a lot of what the federal dollars are kind of going towards. Follow the money. That's what I call it. So let's talk about key procurement, right? Let's talk about the agencies, the methods of which they spend. This kind of goes back to the whole, like, who buys what you sell, right? And like just knowing that in the back of your mind. It also helps you kind of figure out like how I'm going to price things, how am I going to negotiate my pricing, how long am I going to get paid, how long am I going to, is it take to win, what is the federal spend? So all of that is, it all really kind of contributes to how you come up with your pricing strategy. So let's kind of dive into that. So again, 60% of the federal spend goes to the Department of Defense, the DoD. That's the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, all that. So they are the largest buyer, about $350 billion annually. So they spend the most money. How do they like to spend, and what do they like to spend it on? They like IDIQs. They like GWAPs, contract vehicles, right? And of course, major defense contracts. They are constantly purchasing weapons systems, supplies, IT, hardware, very big on cybersecurity. So that is where their main focus is. Your GSA, which is your General Service Administration, right? They oversee multiple award schedules. So commercial products and services. You can sell labor categories and you can sell your products. You can sell a bundle. You can sell everything pretty much on the GSA to most sins anyways. So the GSA facilitates the government-wide procurement solutions. And I say it's like the Amazon, and everybody yells at me for this, but it really is. It's like the Amazon of procurement for the federal government. Because once you've negotiated your rates, once you've approved you've gotten your approved contract, you are replacing profit for time. So you can get a quicker buy. You cut a lot of that period of negotiations, proposals, and evaluations. Department of VA, the Veterans Affairs. They're obviously, most of their major procurements are medical devices, supplies, healthcare services. They buy primarily through VA schedules, IDIQ contracts, and in most cases, open market solicitations. The bigger buys, though, will be on your IDIQs. I see quite a bit of them. Healthcare in general, though, is such a huge expenditure. They're in the billions. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. Their large purchases also reflect kind of the same with the VA. A lot of medical supplies, but they also spend a lot of money on research and development because they're always looking for new ways to innovate in the health field. They also support a lot of public health programs. So they often use grants. They have cooperative agreements and contract vehicles that have specialized needs. They're a little more intentional with their strategy. NASA, they focus lately, this has pivoted quite a bit. We see a lot of that innovation going in NASA, but it's a lot of R&D, a lot of SIBRs, a lot of STTRs. They're focusing on aerospace and advanced technology, things that have to do with space and advancing everything that has to do with it. And they just started with US Space Force. So a lot of project management, setting up operational support facilities, and all of the procurements within it. So they have a lot of unique contract vehicles that they've been working on. And lately I've noticed a lot of O&Ms. So that's actually a really fun agency lately. All right. So we talked about this in part 1, but for those that missed it, I would like you to be very much aware that there is direct and indirect. So let's just kind of like summarize it very quickly. And if you have questions, feel free to ask and I'll dive in deeper later. But again, direct versus indirect. When we're talking about pricing, you have direct labor, you have direct materials, you have direct travel, you have direct subcontractor costs. These are all costs that are allocated specifically to the project. You would not have these expenses if you did not have this project. So let's go down that rabbit hole real quick. I get a contract to provide, let's see, I've been using easy stuff today, so let's use a laptop. I have to provide 100 laptops to the government. I have told them that I will ship it in 30 days because I'm awesome like that. So direct labor. You think that it's only products, but that's not so. You have direct shipping. You have direct labor. I mean, you need inventory people, right? You need to inventory those items in. That's time. Maybe there's special shipping requirements that you need to label this a certain way for them to receive it in the warehouse. So that has to be taken into account when you're coming up with a basis of estimate. So you want to come up with, and this is just my motto, and feel free to take it. How am I going to perform the work? Then I tell myself, who is going to perform the work? That's when you come up with labor categories, right? Then you say, how much is it going to cost me? How much are they going to cost me? How much is it going to cost me to perform the work? So how, who, and how much. You can't figure out how much until you know how and who. So how you're going to do the work is your approach to the scope of work. And then who's going to do it is who you're assigning it. And even more so, what products do you need to purchase? Where are you shipping and who's shipping it? How are you shipping it? How are you maintaining and getting those products? What's the cost? Is there a volume discount? Is there negotiation? Are there terms? Do I have to take it out? Is there interest? Do I take it out in a loan? All of these things are the things that kind of like go into your mind while you're reading the scope of work, or at least should rather. I like to go through it and be like, okay, well, what are all the risks and all the costs associated with this? Because Lord knows I don't want that coming out of my pocket. So you want to be very vigilant about that. Now we also have indirect rates. Your indirect rates cannot be billed specifically to the government, but they still exist. These are what we call in the commercial world your multipliers. So your overhead is your expenses for, let's say, rent for a facility to harbor these said 100 laptops. You also have fringe. Let's assume I hired a full-time inventory person and I'm providing medical benefits, payroll taxes, whatever it costs to essentially manage employees and have benefits for them. General and administrative. It's another expense. That is your accounting costs, your HR costs, management costs, office supplies, coffee costs, right? So all of these costs are not directly billable to the government. I mean, I can't bill the government for my coffee, but I need to have a facility. I need to be able to give these individuals the things that they need to do the best job that they can. And so that is a percentage of my cost. And the government understands that when you're making money, you need that money. You need some sort of cushion. You need a profit. You need some risk to help you stay within business, not just pay for your direct materials and labor, but also so that you have a little profit so that you can build your business. It's better for them and it's better for you all around. So that's what we call a percentage breakdown of cost allocation for your direct versus indirect. Normally, your direct should be around 55%. Direct materials can be 25%. Your overhead and fringe may be 15%. Your G&A, maybe it's only 5%. But this is usually how it should go. Your direct labor and direct materials should always be more than your indirect. Now again, I digress. Your direct costs, labor, materials, right? All the costs that are associated with your project, right? Indirect costs, that's a cost element that is to support the overall operations of your business, not necessarily direct. Profit or fee, that's not an indirect rate. Your profit or fee, or I like to call it your level of risk. That is a percentage-based markup that goes on afterwards so that you can say, all right, after I cover my direct, after I cover my indirect, now I want to make like 4% in profit. I want to make 8%. I don't know. Some people want to make 20%. All right, cool. Nonetheless, you have to know what that risk is. I always associate fees and profits based on complexity. So if I am just selling, a doorknob. If I'm selling a doorknob, there is nothing complicated about that. They just want one doorknob. Well, I don't know where I think that I deserve like 30% profit. It's minimal complexity, right? At that point, I might mark it up 4%. In most cases, maybe 2%. I'm not making a lot of money on it, right? Maybe 100 doorknobs, I make more. But if I am selling a missile that has to navigate and go in a certain way, and I have to also put software in it, and there's so much more complexity. Or maybe I have to sell a drone. I have to sell a drone that goes underwater and over and in sea and inland, and it has to detect certain minerals and metals. Now we're talking about live transport of a drone. So it gets a little more complicated. The complexity of what I'm selling has just increased. What if there's warranty issues? Have I considered that? What if it's damaged during shipping? These things aren't cheap. So the complexity, the risk associated will increase, right? So just think of it like that. And consistent cost accounting. So again, compliance with cost accounting standards, the FAR, the DFAR, the DCAA. These are all acronyms that you're not 100% familiar with, but you're going to start to become familiar as you grow in your business, because they want to ensure that your direct and indirect and profit margins are in line with these standards, with these agencies that regulate, federal regulations. And what they care about is transparency. So they will facilitate audits. They will take a look at your payroll records. They will take a look at your vendor negotiations and how much you paid your vendors and when you paid them. They will ensure that what you're saying you're going to do, you do, and what you say you're going to spend, you spend, because they want to ensure that you're not gouging the government. Now, this is why I push for simplified acquisitions, because there's minimal audits. There's barely ever any audits for simplified acquisitions. But the more money you make, the more audits you get. That should be a quote in itself. All right, so market-based pricing approaches. Some key concepts I want you to be aware of. Basing price on external factors like your competition's data. It matters what other people are pricing in the marketplace. I hear very often, how do I price? What does that cost? Without the market data, you are like a fish out of water. You don't know. And what you don't know, and you're stuck there, right? And you're going to either go too high, you're going to go too low, you're going to lose money, or you're going to outbid yourself. You don't want to do any either, right? So you want to do market research and get your competition's data. You want to be able to find out what they're pricing things for in similar niches as yourself. Find a commercial price list. You can find a GSA price list. That's where I go. You can use a comp analysis tool, which can give you pricing. There's many ways that you can essentially do an overall market research to find pricing. You want to ensure essentially that your government, the government price really does align and justify the price that you're providing. Some quick and straightforward comparable benchmarks really do exist, and they help. You want to be stable, well-defined markets, clear reference prices. So for instance, if I am buying a laptop, I do the rule of three if I'm going to get hardware. And the same with subcontracting or finding a vendor. I do the rule of three. I'm going to find 3 different vendors that supply that product. And I'm going to compare the pros and cons to each one. And then I'm going to choose the one that's like right in the middle. I'm not going to choose the cheapest unless they're the best and they're the cheapest, right? That would be amazing. But I don't go based on just price. I want to go based on added value. Maybe one is lower, but another one, maybe it's a little higher by like $100, but there's added value in the pricing. So I go based on that. Those are also benchmarks that change the overall market value of a product. This Dell laptop is $1,000. It's the lowest price, but you don't get any bells and whistles. It's just basic. This laptop's $2,000, but you get immediate training. You get a warranty for 2 years. It has all the software already installed in it, all the bells and whistles. We can ship it to the agency just the way they want it shipped, all labeled and prepared the way they've requested in the solicitation. Added value. Now I'm transparently sharing all the things that I'm going to add and why 2,000 sounds like a better deal than 1,000. Because think about all the money I'm going to spend trying to get to that 2,000. You want to share the transparency and added value. And so lowest price is not always the only price. All right. Now, if you have a highly specialized product, I hear this very often, it's very hard to find things that are comparable so that you can do market analysis. In those cases, I increase the risk percentage. I will increase my profit margins. So I know that there's a higher risk, and we know that products change continuously. So if I know that a laptop is, I'm stuck on the laptops today, but if I know a laptop is $1,000 and I know that this is a specialized rugged laptop that specifically is only for the Marines and it's very specific to them, right? And I want to ensure essentially that this laptop is of market value. But I can't find another vendor that sells this laptop or will even give me pricing. So I only have my price or what I think my price should be. Well, at that point, again, I'm going to increase my risk. I know that It could be $1,500 tomorrow. I could misprice myself. I want to be very, very conscientious of that. So I will price higher. And sometimes you will price yourself out of the game, and you will use that debriefing when you request, why you lost. You can find out if it was it's more than most cases when it comes to products due to pricing. So if it's that, you can kind of take a look at what everyone else has priced at and then reassess. Okay, everyone was pricing this at $1,200. Got it. I priced it at $1,500. Now I know. The more you know. Sometimes a loss is a future gain. So take it for what it is on that. Value-based pricing. So determining product value. Again, emphasizing unique features about your product. It cannot just be, this is my laptop. Here you go. When you're pricing, you're also doing a price volume. You're also ensuring that they understand what makes your product unique. Why are we going to spend that money on that product? Is it superior performance? What's the proven ROI for the agency? It goes without saying, but in many cases, when you're writing your proposal, you cannot assume anything. They don't know what you don't say, whether they know you or not. So you can write, this computer works really fast. Cool. What defines fast? How do you define fast? What is that of benefit to me? That is a feature, but what is the benefit? How does this add value to me to justify the cost? Well, now I can switch it up a bit. I want to be a little more intentional with how I state this. So this computer is so fast that it has seamless integration and seamless implementation and will save you on data processing of over 20% in costs. Now you're giving them a benefit to the feature. Not only is it fast, now I know what I'm getting out of that performance. So when you kind of upsell yourself and get a little more value-based, you're able to kind of push the pricing and increase it and increase your profit margins too. You don't always want to go lowest price. You want to be able to push. If you have a really good product, you can push for more money. And that, again, goes based on your value. Will you consider life cycle costs? Will you provide maintenance? Will you provide warranties? Will there be upgrades? Is there training? Will you provide, if I buy in bulk, will you provide a discount? Those are things that you can negotiate to determine product value and increase the value of it. Balancing cost realism and perceived benefits. So what you perceive as the benefits versus what is reasonable in the market are two totally different things. We know our perceptions are completely off, especially when we consider ourselves, right? We always think highly of our own products and services, and that's great, but we have to be realistic. So you want to be mission critical, impactful, but you also have to justify premium pricing for that mission critical impact, right? You have to showcase why in measurable terms. So if you align your price with a beneficial measurable, then that is, again, determining the product value and showcasing value based on your pricing. So if I push and say, again, this costs $5,000 versus $2,000, well, why? Showcase that benefit. So quantitative data, past performance, cost savings, use KPIs, use data, use metrics to reinforce the value of your claims. Communicate that thoroughly in your cost narrative and in your proposal. In order for you to remain competitive, though, you are going to reflect the true value of the government. If you're too high, I don't care how beautiful it is. The government, at the end of the day, only wants what they have requested. And you can tell them about the bells and whistles, but they don't always necessarily want to buy the bells and whistles unless they open it up for that. So feel free to give them minimum, show them premium, and then win the contract and then sell it afterwards. That's just a sales strategy. It's always easier to modify a current contract than it is to win one. All right, so developing your pricing strategy. Gathering data. Again, market research. Your cost volume narrative. You are going to explain, this is where you're going to explain your rationale to your pricing in your proposal. You're going to essentially explain to the evaluator all the risks, the concerns, how you mitigated them, the schedule, the shipping, the scalability, all of your things of like why this is the price and so on and so forth. Your proposal pricing, you really need to, your pricing needs to match your technical volume. I say this a lot. It has to be cohesive. So if I say I'm going to have a project manager that's going to manage the entire project, right? In the technical volume, it needs to state that there's a project manager. And then in the staffing management approach, it needs to state that there's a project manager. And then if I am pricing it, guess what it needs to state? That there's a project manager and how much he costs. So it has to be cohesive. If at any point it doesn't match, you're considered inconsistent and high at risk. So, and as per usual, balance competitive with profitability. Sometimes I hear people, we do a pricing and, you know, people will come to me and say, that's it. That's all I'm getting. And it's like, after you've paid all your employees, like, you know, the realism of government contracting is that, you know, you get thrown with YouTube University on these giant numbers where it's like, we just want, you know, $1 million. And it's like, all right, that can be very well true, right? But let's talk about what your net profit was, right? Let's have that conversation. I think Ashley and I have this quite often, because if 55 to 70% of your costs were direct, just to pay your individuals, just to pay for the product itself that you're selling, then in realism, you are getting possibly a 35% profit, more gross profit, after your operational, after your G&A, after your fringe. You're usually averaging anywhere from 8 to 22% in net profits. That's your take home. So 22% of $1 million is a huge difference from just saying $1 million. So understand that when you're bidding with the government, it's not the top line revenue. It's going to help you build your business and you are going to make a profit, but you're not going to make that much profit. You have to scale, you have to build, you have to gather more contracts. That's why the name of the game is federal contracting. As you win one, then on to the next one, give it to your project manager. And now we have to build, because now you're going to stack those profits. But you don't make millions and millions of dollars off of one contract. I'd really love to see a person that did. And in many cases, even if you planned for it, there is risk associated with it. And most government contracts spend about 8% of that budget on sales and BD for the next contract. So just keep that in mind. Food for thought. All right, contract types. We will get through this very quickly because it's not really that permissible for this. But firm fixed price is, it kind of shifts all of the risk to the contractor and away from the government. This is you putting a firm fixed price together and stating these 100 laptops are going to cost the government, I don't know, $50,000. It's probably really cheap, but $50,000, right? And that's it. And the government says, cool, here is a contract for $50,000. Well, now your vendor, you know, renegotiates and says, hey, those laptops aren't 50,000, aren't going to be this much anymore. They're going to increase by 20%. Oh dear. I already bid at $50,000. I can't increase it anymore. You are essentially in charge of keeping your budget within what you bid. Because if you go higher, you eat into your profit margins. So the risk is on you. And if the price of the item changes, the government doesn't care because their price is fixed and firm. So just keep that in mind. Cost reimbursable contracts, not as common anymore. They're more common for larger prime contractors. But this is pretty, I want to say, appropriate for like research and development, CIBRs. This is really based on, this is when it's really hard to estimate. The cost really does shift a lot. So sometimes there is cost per plus a fixed fee. You can say, I will always make 4%, but the cost is going to shift and you will adjust based on those cost adjustments. That's a whole nother lesson. Time and materials. It's honestly the most appropriate usage, I think, for products. Whatever time and whatever materials you procure and you spend on a contract, that plus your fee should be added and billed to the government. So that is just 3 contract types that I kind of wanted to share with you specifically for this, based on the financial risks. All right, so in this course / webinar, we are going to share with you a basis of estimate spreadsheet, and I'll leave it for Ashley to share the link, and we'll probably put it, because this is being streamed to YouTube, so we can probably put it in the YouTube, or I'll let her kind of let you know where it'll be. But I created a basis of estimate for you so that you can use it as a template. But essentially, the need for a basis of estimate is defining the purpose, right? It's your proposed cost. It's how you justify your proposed cost so that you can demonstrate compliance, cost realism, and you're prepared for an audit whenever needed. It also clearly outlines what is included and excluded. If there's any cost estimates, any special conditions, you want to keep that in mind. And then the methodology behind it is to identify the cost, where it was derived from, using your historical data. So you can put links in there, parameters, vendor quotes, and other things. It also provides data sources. So verifiable materials, industry rates, things of that magnitude. And of course, your calculations. Again, proving transparency and traceability. And I will show you what that looks like shortly. We'll do it at the end of the slides, and then I'll kind of show you how to use your basis of estimate template for you to take on with you. So another thing that we hear a lot in this group is, how do you find a vendor? I think of it more as the rule of 3, again, as you would do with products. If you were replacing your roof on your house, you would get 3 quotes. Or at least I hope you would. You don't want to choose the first person. You also, a lot of people look at the Google reviews. I want someone that has a lot of stars. Someone that has less stars and got a lot of complaints, I don't want them working on my roof. So I want to define the requirements for my vendor. I want to find the right vendor. I want to do a little shopping. I want to be very smart about this and very intentional, because if they go ahead and mess up the contract in any way, that risk is on you. You're the prime. So you're the one that has to answer to the government, not them. So you want to ensure that you get yourself a reputable vendor, because they're going to be representing your business, and your business is everything. And in the federal government, it's not like, I messed up with the DOD, but that's okay, there's NASA. Like, no, there's a CPAR rating. We're gonna see it. You have the joy sometimes and the privilege of messing up one person's, roof. We'll go back to the roof, right? You can mess up one person's roof, but if they don't put it on your Google review, no one else will know about it, right? If they don't talk about it, no one will know about it. Well, in the government, they talk about it. They keep those stats. So you want to put your best foot forward and ensure that you are Not only are you bringing in good employees, that you're bringing in good ethics and compliance and requirements, and that you are trying to also shop and bring in the best vendors that are going to represent your product and your business, right? So how do we find a good vendor? Well, let's define those requirements. You want to clearly outline the desired characteristics and features and performance requires for the product and service that you need. So when I am reaching out to a vendor, I am now the prime. I'm the one shopping for them. So think of it like you're the government now. I give them an RFQ. I get really bougie with it. I don't tell them where I got it from. I can delete all the other information, or I can copy and paste into like an RFQ format. But now I'm sending them a request for a quote. I want them to quote these specs, these items, this quantity, how much is shipping, what's their time frame of when they can get it delivered, do they do specialized shipping, is there tax incentive, like what is the incentives, where's the value add, is there a warranty, is it transferable? I mean, I can keep going on. So I put myself in the agency shoes and I go into it and make it super, super simple for them to quote correctly and quickly. The easier you make other people's lives, the easier they'll make your lives. And you will find business will go a lot better for you. You want to identify any compliance requirements. So if the government says we want this product shipped and labeled in a certain format, well, now you have to ensure that this vendor can do that. And if not, that's fine. Ship it to your warehouse or to your facility and you do that shipping, those shipping labels. But now that's added cost. So see how we're kind of going to the basis of estimate again? That's always in the back of your mind. So just ensuring that you don't miss anything and assume that they do everything. Along with that, if there are requirements for certifications, ensure they have that and let them provide you with proof. Two main things I always request is their certifications, that they do what they say they do, right? And the other is their insurance, to ensure that they are covered under liability and that I am covered. And then I ask for a certificate of insurance with my name on it, because the government's going to ask for one too. I also consider small business preferences. So in many cases, if I'm going to do business with another business, I have preferential treatment. I do. That's just the way it is. If it's an SDVOSB, if it is a small business, I want to help small businesses. I would prefer that. If I'm doing business with the VA, I want to do business with a veteran. So there are also evaluation criteria and factors when we get into more like state and local, where they prefer small business preferences, where they ask you, will you work with a minority business enterprise? And that gives you, a leg up of 5 to 10% or something on your evaluation criteria. So I will consider that as well in my vendor selection process. Conducting market research, online searches. I'll go to usaspending.gov so that I can look for vendors with my relevant NICS codes. And I will find people in my industry, other businesses that have won contracts or are winning contracts so that I can partner with them. Or I will find small businesses that are winning contracts and partner with them so that I can be the prime, because they already have the relationship. They already know how this goes. There's not a lot of education necessary in this. So as long as you have a teaming agreement put in place, you both can get together and provide the services together. Pre-screen your suppliers, referrals, and past performance. Just like the government asks you for referrals and past performance, so do they. Ask them for reviews. All right. And then the last but not least is evaluating your potential vendors. So you want to ensure that they have the capability and the capacity to do the work. I would not necessarily go to a small business if I had to renovate a house. Let's say I have to do that. If I have to renovate a house, I'm not going to go to this small business that has only renovated one house. or only has 5 employees when I need to renovate 50 houses in a 6-month period? So do they have the capacity to staff up? Do they have the infrastructure, the overhead? Will they be able to do this and keep the timeline on track? Will they be able to deliver what they say they are going to deliver? Or better yet, what I say that they're going to deliver, right? Ensure that they have a quality management system if it has to do with IT or security. If it's manufacturing, ISO 9001 and AS 9100, usually, certifications you want to look for. They essentially just really honestly show that there's consistency and compliancy when it comes to products. So that really does help. And then last but not least, it's financial stability for me. I am so very big on ensuring that this business is not, if I'm going to do a 4 to 5 year contract with them, I do not want them to go out of business in a year. And then I have to find another vendor and maybe the pricing's off or the service off. That puts me at risk. So I want to make sure that they have what we call financial health. They are stable and they're going to be around for a while. Your negotiating terms. Preparation. Determining your budget ceiling, how much you're willing to spend, how much you're not, what your cost drivers are, your profit margins, the initial offer, and always expect the counter offer. So I always start high because I know they're going to try to talk me down. So you have to try to kind of consider that, right? They're going to try to add a certain price. You have to know what your boundaries are and what your market, and you'll get that in your pricing analysis that we will give you as well. It was also added to your services package, but we can add that too. So you want to ensure that you know how much you're willing to spend and what your boundary is. This is the lowest I'm willing to go, and this is my ceiling, my foundation and my ceiling, right? So what's the win-win outcome? When you're negotiating, you need it to feel like a win for them and a win for you. So offer incentives like volume discounts. See if they can give you that. Longer contract terms, multi-year deals, building a relationship with your vendor, letting them know that you're here for the long haul. You're not here as a one and done. You're not just using them. Be respectful of your subcontractors and your vendors and your teaming partners. I assure you that when you look out for them, they will look out for you. Essentially, that will help you, especially in pricing. It encourages favorable pricing. So just keep those things into consideration. Closed deal document, we all know that. All right, so I'm going to show you what a basis of estimate is very quickly, and then we will be done with the course. But this is what I'm going to send to you guys, and you are more than welcome to use it at your disposal. No. I'll share screen here. All right, I'm going to share my entire screen. All right, so your basis of estimate. This will be yours to take, to have, to hold, and all that good stuff. I put like a little description for you so that you can have it. But ultimately, your basis of estimate, the project, your work breakdown structure, materials, your labor, your indirect costs. You want to be able to, you ensure that you put that all in there. Your base costs. This is your total amount for everything. Your reserve. In many cases, that's called your profit / risk, right? Your total costs, your funding source. Let's think about that too. If you need financing, or if you can negotiate net terms, net 30 is preferable upon delivery or shipping in many cases. And your cost methodology, how you got to your estimate. So you want to break out your costs description and your work breakdown structure. This is going to help you come up with a basis of estimate. And then I gave you some examples here. So let's see. You have your project, what type of project, how much everything's going to cost, and what defines that, right? And how you can come up with some of that too is feel free to use your services breakdown that Ashley put on the site as well. You can put the part number. You can put the name of the product that you're purchasing, description. This is the basis of estimate or your bill of materials. I mean, there's a million ways you could, or work breakdown structure. There's like a million names for it, but it's all really the same. Any specific specs, the terms, preferably net 30. I always try to negotiate for that. I need, quantity 100. The price. If there's shipping involved, slow shipping, I know. And what that total cost is. And then I always put a material reserve because pricing fluctuates all the time. I put it at like 2.5%. So it'll tell you what your direct cost is, and then it'll tell you what your burden cost is. Your burden cost is what's billable to the government. Okay? And again, when you're looking at your indirect rates, your company burden table, you will have here some industry standards that you can refer to. If there's no fringe, and let's assume you're just selling a product and shipping out to them, you need no fringe because everybody's going to work like just for one day at a 1099 pace. That's fine. Delete fringe. Overhead, if you need a facility to manage it all. G&A, any of those costs. And then your risk factors. And then some industry standards based on the type of factor that you are putting in the risk, right? If you're just reselling, which is everyone's favorite middleman approach, 1.10, you're not making a lot because you're not adding any value. You're just taking one item and giving it to someone else. Materials, products. Normally, this is about 1.2 to 1.25. So you see how that your wrap rate right here is at the 1.236. That is a good wrap rate for products. So that's how we kind of get that. And I will ensure that you have this summary breakdown where you can kind of play with the numbers and do your double check system and see what kind of gross profit margins you're making and net profit and all that good stuff. And this also, I use it for services quite a bit. So it has the labor breakdown in this. If you haven't seen it already, it's my handy dandy pricing template. So you will get the basis of estimate and the pricing template. And these slides, of course. And that is all, folks. I'll stop sharing. If you have any questions, feel free to add them to the side. But I see there was a lot of talking. GSA library. Very nice. Would you like me to end the stream, Ashley, or would you like to say something? She's like, I am saying something.
I'm here. There were a couple questions as you were going that I popped up, but you didn't see it, so I went ahead and answered it in the chat. Amanda Lynn had a few questions along the way. Now, I'm not sure exactly where in the presentation this one was.
Are simplified acquisitions only in SAM? Yes. How do you figure out a contract that's above the threshold when you price it? Sadly enough, it doesn't ever tell you. But there are some places like Dibs that normally have a lot of simplified acquisition. What is it? Unison, I think it is.
Unison Marketplace. I found some on FedConnect too.
FedConnect. So there are some there that they're not like high priced items. They're smaller and they have less regulations.
Yeah.
So give that a shot.
me see if there's any additional questions here that we missed. A lot of it was me jabbering. Thank you so much, Maya. I hope I pronounced that
I
correctly.
submitted a bid to FTEs, full-time employees, just above the threshold. Now I'm concerned I didn't bid as per the set. Oh, you're fine. I'm sure you're fine. If you are fair and you're reasonable and you have proof in your pricing, you're good. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't don't if it's over 50,000 or under 50, I wouldn't go crazy. It's more just a base. It's just a threshold.
Yeah, from a strategic standpoint, if I know that it's going to be a SAT, I'm definitely going to respond before I see the solicitation. So if the government's going to put it on SAM, they put it out for sources sought. I'm going to influence that to get set aside in my set aside to increase my chances of being sole source. Because remember, simplified acquisitions are set aside for small businesses.
Yep.
That's why they're there for. So position yourself to capture those. And don't forget that the only thing that needs to happen for the contracting process to start is that the need has to be determined. So whether you sell a product that you already know they need over and over and over again, or whether you convince them they need it, makes no difference. So can you use a GSA schedule for price comparison? Yep. GSA schedules, when one onboards to GSA, your pricing does become public. So here is where you can go. If you just type into Google GSA elibrary.gsa.gov, it'll forward you to that /helm. But I did also put the link in the chat in case you guys wanted to peruse pricing. And here's where you can find the resources. Give me 24 hours. I did post the services pricing from last week, so that's live on the website. And then the products pricing will be on there by tomorrow.
Yes, you will have it all.
Excellent.
And if you guys have any other webinars you would like us to provide for you, or if there's anything that we missed, let us know. I mean, put it in the comments of the channel. Let us know. And I'm not going to do this every week because, Lord, this is a lot of work. But it's a lot of prep. But I am happy to do it maybe once a month. So you just let me know what helps you guys, and I'm very happy to move forward and provide more training. It gets me comfortable with talking to you guys, and it teaches you stuff that you don't necessarily always have to buy. If you want more personalized training, Ashley is the go-to for business development and capture management, your certifications, your capability statements, all that good stuff, even your GSA
data stuff. Yeah, bring it this way. Give me a reason to go into USA spending.
Or data. She loves data. She'll be there all day for you. If you need proposals or you need pricing, I'm your gal. But
yeah, I'm going to send you that way for sure.
Have our niches. So if
these numbers make my head explode.
So if you guys have anything that you need specifically, or even have a use case, I am happy to bring up your use case as long as you're cool and you give me permission to. We'll bring it on the screen and we'll price it together. So nonetheless, thank you so much for attending. If you need anything, leave in the comments. But either way, like and subscribe. And thank you for attending. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.